The radio crackled to life in the Forward Operating Base's Tactical Operations Center, cutting through the usual morning chatter. Commander Jake Morrison looked up from his mission briefings, his weathered face creasing into a frown as he heard the excitement in the voice coming through the speakers. "Control, this is Overwatch 7. You're not going to believe this shot we just witnessed. Request immediate verification on target coordinates Alpha 77 Romeo." Morrison had been running special operations for 12 years, and very little surprised him anymore. But something in the spotter's voice made him set down his coffee and lean toward the radio operator. "Overwatch 7, this is Control. What's your status?" the radio operator responded. "Control. We just observed a single-shot takedown of an enemy sniper at 3,847 meters. Repeat, 3,847 meters. The shot came from grid reference 42S MD Palmvo 345678. We need ballistics verification and identification of the shooter." Morrison felt his eyebrows rise. That distance was beyond what most people considered possible, even with the best equipment. The current record for a confirmed sniper kill stood at around 3,500 meters, and that had been accomplished by a Canadian Special Forces sniper with perfect conditions and multiple attempts. This was claiming nearly 300 meters beyond that. "Overwatch 7, confirm your coordinates and distance calculation," Morrison said, taking the radio handset from the operator. "Commander, this is Sergeant Martinez at Overwatch 7. Sir, we've triple-checked everything. Our laser rangefinder shows 3,847 meters. Wind conditions were challenging, 15 to 20 knot crosswind with variable gusts. The target was a confirmed enemy sniper who had been harassing our supply convoys for the past week. One shot, clean kill. We observed the muzzle flash from the ridge line at our 6 o'clock position." Morrison studied the tactical map spread across the table. The reported shooting position was in an area where several units were operating, but none of his SEAL teams were scheduled to be in that exact location. The Army had a few sniper teams in the region, and there were rumors of some independent contractors working in the area. "Overwatch 7, did you identify the shooter or the weapon system used?" "Negative on visual identification of the shooter, sir. But from the sound signature and muzzle flash characteristics, we believe it was a Barrett M82 or similar 50 caliber system. The shot timing suggests a single operator, not a team." Morrison turned to his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, who had been monitoring the conversation. "What units do we have in that grid square?" Chen consulted her tablet, scrolling through unit positions. "Sir, we have an Army reconnaissance element about 2 clicks north, and there's supposed to be a small forward observation team from the 75th Rangers somewhere in that sector. But according to their last check-in, they were further east." "Get me a bird in the air," Morrison decided. "I want to see this shooting position and confirm this story. If someone's running independent operations in our area of responsibility without coordination, we need to know about it." 20 minutes later, Morrison was in the passenger seat of a Black Hawk helicopter flying toward the coordinates where the impossible shot had supposedly originated. The mountainous terrain below was harsh and unforgiving, the kind of place where only the most experienced operators would choose to set up a hide. The pilot's voice came through his headset. "Commander, we're approaching the coordinates. I can see what looks like a concealed position on the ridge line." Morrison scanned the terrain with binoculars. The position was expertly chosen, good sight lines across the valley, multiple escape routes, and natural camouflage. Whoever had been here knew what they were doing. "Set us down on that flat area about 200 meters east," Morrison directed. "I want to examine that position myself." The helicopter touched down in a swirl of dust and rotor wash. Morrison and 2 of his team members approached the sniper position carefully, weapons ready. Even though the shooter was apparently on their side, operational security demanded caution. The hide was remarkable. Constructed with natural materials and carefully positioned to be nearly invisible from the valley floor, It showed the hallmarks of professional military training. Morrison found the firing position easily enough, a small cleared area with an improvised bipod rest made from stacked rocks. "Commander, check this out," called Petty Officer Rodriguez, who was examining the ground near the firing position. Morrison walked over to find Rodriguez, holding up a spent brass casing. The head stamp confirmed it was a 50 BMG round, consistent with the Barrett rifle the spotter had identified. But what caught Morrison's attention was a small piece of paper tucked under one of the rocks. He unfolded it carefully. Written in neat handwriting were detailed wind calculations, range estimates, and ballistic corrections. The math was complex but accurate, showing someone with advanced knowledge of long-range shooting principles. At the bottom of the paper were the initials EC and a small notation: "Confirmed target eliminated, area sanitized." "Professional work," Rodriguez observed, looking around the position. "Whoever this was cleaned up after themselves. No trash, no unnecessary disturbance." Morrison studied the paper more carefully. The wind calculations were particularly impressive, showing real-time adjustments for changing conditions. This wasn't someone who had gotten lucky with a long shot. This was a skilled marksman who had carefully planned and executed a precision operation. "Sir, we need to check the target area," suggested Rodriguez. "Confirm the kill and see if we can learn anything else about what happened here." The flight to the target location took another 15 minutes. As they approached the coordinates where the enemy sniper had been positioned, Morrison could see why this location had been problematic for American forces. It commanded an excellent view of the main supply route and several patrol bases. They found the body exactly where Overwatch 7 had reported. The enemy fighter was equipped with a Soviet-era Dragunov sniper rifle and had clearly been using this position for some time. Based on the amount of equipment and supplies scattered around, the shot had been incredibly precise. Morrison examined the wound and whistled quietly. At nearly 4,000 meters, most rounds would be tumbling and losing significant accuracy, but this shot had been clean and instantly fatal. "Commander, look at this," Rodriguez called from a few meters away. He was examining the enemy sniper's equipment through his scope. "This guy had some serious hardware: night vision, laser rangefinder, quality optics. He wasn't just some insurgent with an old rifle." Morrison nodded grimly. The enemy sniper's equipment suggested he was either very well funded or had significant training. Taking him out had probably saved American lives, potentially many of them given his position and equipment quality. "Let's get back to base," Morrison decided. "I want to find out who EC is and why they're operating in our sector without coordination." The flight back to the forward operating base gave Morrison time to think. The shooting skill demonstrated at that range was extraordinary, but it was the tactical knowledge that really impressed him. The shooter had identified a legitimate threat, planned a complex shot under difficult conditions, executed it perfectly, and then sanitized the position before disappearing. That level of professionalism suggested military training, probably special operations background. Back at the base, Morrison headed straight to the intelligence shop. "Chen, I need you to run through all personnel files for anyone with the initials EC cross-reference with sniper-qualified personnel and check contractor databases too." "Sir, that might take a while. Those initials could match a lot of people. Start with special operations backgrounds and long-range shooting experience. Also check with the Rangers and see if any of their teams have been operating in that grid square." While Chen worked her contacts and databases, Morrison reviewed the tactical situation. The enemy sniper who had been eliminated had been a significant problem for weeks. Supply convoys had been forced to take longer routes, and several patrol bases had been receiving harassing fire. Eliminating that threat was a significant tactical victory, regardless of who had accomplished it. An hour later, Chen returned with preliminary results. "Sir, I found 3 possibles in the contractor database, but none of them are supposed to be in this area. I also found 2 Army snipers with those initials. but one is currently at Fort Benning for instructor training and the other is with a unit that's operating about 50 kilometers south of here. Morrison frowned. What about unofficial operations? CIA, Special Activities Division, any of the black programs? I put out some feelers, sir, but you know how that goes. If it is a black program, they're not going to tell us about it. That evening, Morrison was reviewing patrol reports when his radio operator called him over. Sir, we're getting another report from Overwatch 7. They say they've spotted movement in the area where that shot came from this morning. Morrison grabbed the handset. Overwatch 7, this is Control. What's your status? Control. We have visual on what appears to be a single individual moving through the area where this morning's shot originated. Distance is approximately 200 meters. We can see them with our thermal scope, but can't make a positive identification. Can you determine if they're armed? Affirmative, Control. We can see what appears to be a long rifle, and the movement patterns suggest military training. The individual is using proper tactical movement, staying in concealment, following terrain features. Morrison made a decision. Overwatch 7. Maintain observation but do not engage. I'm coming to your location. 40 minutes later, Morrison was lying prone next to Sergeant Martinez at the Overwatch 7 position, studying the distant figure through a high-powered spotting scope. Even at that distance, he could tell this person knew what they were doing. The movement was deliberate and professional, showing an understanding of how to move through hostile territory without being detected. There, Martinez whispered, pointing to a spot about 800 meters away. They just moved between those two boulders. Morrison adjusted his scope and waited. A few seconds later, a figure emerged briefly from cover, and Morrison got his first clear look at the mysterious sniper. It was a woman. She was dressed in standard military fatigues with excellent camouflage discipline. Her movements were smooth and economical, and she carried what appeared to be a Barrett M82 rifle with practiced ease. Even from this distance, Morrison could see the confidence in her movement. This wasn't someone pretending to be a soldier. This was a professional. She's heading for that ridge line, Martinez observed. Same general area where this morning's shot came from. Morrison watched through his scope as the woman moved into position. She spent several minutes scanning the area with what appeared to be a spotting scope, then began setting up a shooting position. Her movements were methodical and professional, showing the kind of training that took years to develop. Control, this is Overwatch 7, Martinez whispered into his radio, following standard protocol. We have positive visual on an unidentified sniper setting up in our area of operations. Female appears to be military trained carrying Barrett system. Request instructions. Morrison took the handset. Overwatch 7. This is Morrison. Maintain observation. Do not engage unless directly threatened. I want to see what she's doing. For the next 20 minutes, they watched as the woman methodically prepared her position. She was clearly looking for something specific, scanning different sectors through her scope with patience that spoke of extensive training. Then Morrison's radio crackled with a transmission on a different frequency. Any friendly units in vicinity of Grid 42S MD 112345678, this is Eagle 1. We have visual on what appears to be an enemy mortar position approximately 2,800 meters north of your location. Unable to engage due to civilian proximity. Request sniper support if available. Morrison exchanged looks with Martinez. The grid reference Eagle 1 had provided was directly in the woman's sightline from her current position. They watched through their scopes as the woman apparently heard the same radio transmission. She adjusted her position slightly and began scanning the area Eagle 1 had indicated. After a few minutes, she settled into a firing position. She's taking aim at something, Martinez whispered. Range to her target area would be about 2,800 meters. Morrison calculated quickly. If she was engaging the mortar position Eagle 1 had reported, it would be another extremely long-range shot under challenging conditions. The afternoon winds had picked up, and the angle would be difficult. Through his scope, Morrison saw the muzzle flash as the woman fired. The sound reached them a few seconds later, the distinctive crack of a .50 caliber rifle echoing across the valley. Almost immediately, Eagle One's voice came back on the radio. "Control, this is Eagle One. Enemy mortar position has been eliminated. Single shot. Whoever your sniper is, tell them that was outstanding work." Morrison lowered his scope and looked at Martinez, who was staring back at him with wide eyes. "Sir, did she just—" "Yeah," Morrison said quietly. "She just made another impossible shot based on nothing more than an overheard radio transmission." They watched as the woman quickly broke down her position and began moving away from the area, following proper tactical procedures for egressing a sniper hide. Within minutes, she had disappeared into the rocky terrain. Morrison keyed his radio. "Eagle One, this is Morrison. Can you confirm the elimination of that mortar position?" "Confirmed, Control. Direct hit on the mortar tube, and we can see 2 enemy personnel down. That was precision shooting at its finest. Range was right at 2,800 meters. And the wind conditions were challenging. Professional work." As they prepared to leave the Overwatch 7 position, Morrison found himself thinking about what he had witnessed. Twice in one day, this mysterious woman had made shots that would challenge the best snipers in the world. But more importantly, she was clearly operating in support of American forces, engaging legitimate enemy targets and following proper tactical procedures. The question was, who was she, and why was she operating independently in his area of responsibility? Morrison had commanded special operations teams around the world, and he had never encountered anyone who combined that level of shooting skill with such tactical professionalism while operating completely alone. Tomorrow, he decided, he was going to find out exactly who EC was and have a conversation with her. Because someone with those skills needed to be part of his team, not operating in the shadows without support or coordination. The helicopter lifted off just as the sun was setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the valley where 2 impossible shots had changed the tactical situation in ways that Morrison was only beginning to understand. Morrison was awake before dawn, studying satellite imagery of the region where the mysterious sniper had been operating. The intelligence shop had worked through the night, but their search for someone with the initials EC had yielded frustratingly little useful information. "Sir, we did find something interesting," Lieutenant Chen reported, setting a folder on his desk. "There's a notation in the contractor database about someone named Elena Cruz, but most of her file is classified above our clearance level. What we can see shows she's former military with extensive special operations experience." Morrison opened the file and scanned the limited information available. Elena Cruz, 28 years old, 5 foot 6 inches, 130 pounds. Former Army, sniper qualified, decorated combat veteran with multiple deployments. Current status listed as independent contractor, with a note that she was cleared to operate in the region, but no details about her mission or who was employing her. "That's not much to go on," Morrison said, "but it matches what we observed yesterday. Get me a secure line to JSOC. If she's operating under their authority, I need to know about it." While Chen worked on establishing contact with Joint Special Operations Command, Morrison continued studying the tactical map. Elena Cruz, if that was indeed who they had been observing, had chosen her positions with exceptional skill. Each location provided optimal fields of fire while offering multiple escape routes and excellent concealment. An hour later, Chen returned with a puzzled expression. "Sir, JSOC says they have no current operations in our sector involving anyone named Elena Cruz. They confirmed she's in their database as approved for independent operations, but they claim they haven't tasked her for anything specific." Morrison frowned. Independent contractors sometimes worked for various government agencies, not all of which coordinated with military commands. "Try the agency. See if she's working for them." "Already did, sir. They gave me the standard, neither confirm nor deny response, which usually means they know something but won't talk about it. Before Morrison could respond, his radio operator called out, "Sir, we're getting reports of another incident. Overwatch 3 is reporting they observed someone eliminating an enemy observation post about 6 kilometers east of yesterday's location." Morrison walked quickly to the radio position. "Overwatch 3, this is Control. Give me details." Control, at approximately 0630 hours, we observed muzzle flashes from what appeared to be an enemy position on Hill 847. We were preparing to call in artillery when we saw a single muzzle flash from a ridgeline approximately 3,200 meters south of the target. The enemy position went silent immediately. "Did you observe the shooter?" "Negative, Control. Too much distance and terrain masking, but we did see a single figure moving away from the area about 10 minutes later. Tactical movement. Appeared to be carrying a long weapon system." Morrison looked at Chen, who was already plotting the coordinates on their tactical map. The location was consistent with Elena Cruz's apparent area of operations, and the shooting skills matched what they had observed the previous day. "Overwatch 3, I want you to investigate that shooting position. Look for any evidence of who was operating there." "Roger, Control. Moving to investigate now." 30 minutes later, Overwatch 3 reported their findings. "Control, we found the shooting position. Very professional setup, excellent concealment. We recovered one spent .50 caliber casing and found this note." Morrison felt his pulse quicken. "Read me the note." "Sir, it says, Hill 847 observation post eliminated. 4 enemy personnel neutralized. Area clear for friendly operations. EC." This time, Elena Cruz had left more than just initials. She was clearly monitoring friendly radio traffic and responding to threats against American forces. But she was also providing tactical intelligence, something that suggested she had broader awareness of the operational situation than a typical independent contractor might have. Morrison made a decision. "I'm going out there. Get me a team and a helicopter. I want to examine these positions myself and see if I can make contact with this woman." An hour later, Morrison was rappelling from a Black Hawk onto the ridgeline where the morning's shot had originated. With him were Petty Officers Rodriguez and Thompson, both experienced SEAL operators who could provide security while Morrison investigated. The shooting position was even more impressive up close. Elena Cruz had used natural terrain features to create a hide that was nearly invisible from below while providing an excellent view of the target area. Her choice of position showed advanced understanding of ballistics, terrain analysis, and tactical movement. "Sir, check this out," Rodriguez called from nearby. He was examining a small pile of stones arranged in a specific pattern. "This looks like a message marker." Morrison walked over and studied the stone arrangement. It was subtle but deliberate, the kind of field-expedient communication method taught in advanced special operations training. The pattern pointed toward a specific terrain feature about 200 meters away. "Let's see where this leads," Morrison decided. They followed the indicated direction and found another marker, this one pointing toward a different location. After following 3 more markers, they arrived at a small cave partially concealed by vegetation. "Someone's been using this place," Thompson observed, noting the careful arrangement of the concealment. "Recent activity, probably within the last few hours." Morrison examined the cave entrance and found a small piece of paper wedged into a crack in the rock. He unfolded it carefully and read the message written in the same neat handwriting they had seen before. "Commander Morrison, I know you've been investigating my activities. Meet me at Grid 42S MD 2156 7834 at 1400 hours if you want answers. Come alone and unarmed. EC." Rodriguez and Thompson exchanged glances. "Sir, this could be a trap," Rodriguez pointed out. "We don't know enough about this person's real intentions." Morrison studied the message. Elena Cruz had somehow identified him personally, which meant she had access to intelligence about American operations beyond what a typical contractor would have. She also knew he was investigating her activities, suggesting she had been monitoring their communications or movements. She's had multiple opportunities to engage American forces if she wanted to cause harm, Morrison reasoned. Instead, she's been eliminating legitimate threats and providing tactical support. I think the risk is manageable. Sir, at least let us provide overwatch, Thompson suggested. We can stay at distance and monitor the meeting. Morrison considered this. Elena Cruz had demonstrated exceptional awareness of her surroundings, so trying to hide backup would likely be futile. But having his team in position to respond if something went wrong made tactical sense. All right, but stay at least 1,000 meters out. If she's as good as I think she is, she'll know you're there anyway. Better to be honest about it. The coordinates Elena Cruz had specified led to a small valley surrounded by rocky hills. Morrison arrived at precisely 1400 hours, having approached on foot from the north. He had left his weapons with Rodriguez and Thompson as requested, but wore his tactical vest and radio. He didn't have to wait long. Elena Cruz emerged from concealment among the rocks about 50 meters away, moving with the fluid grace of someone completely comfortable in hostile terrain. She was smaller than Morrison had expected, but carried herself with unmistakable confidence. "Commander Morrison," she called out, her voice carrying clearly in the mountain air. "Thank you for coming." Up close, Elena Cruz was clearly a professional soldier. Her equipment was top quality and well-maintained, her uniform bore no identifying patches or insignia, and her movements showed the kind of tactical awareness that came from extensive combat experience. "Ms. Cruz, I presume," Morrison replied, stopping about 20 meters away. "I have to say your shooting has been impressive, but I need to understand what you're doing in my area of operations." Elena smiled slightly. "Your area of operations? I think there might be some confusion about that, Commander." "Then enlighten me. Who are you working for, and what's your mission here?" Elena studied Morrison for a long moment before responding. "I'm working for the same people you are, ultimately. The difference is that my chain of command runs through different channels." Morrison felt his frustration growing. "That's not an answer. I'm responsible for operational security in this region, and I need to know about any American operations that might affect my mission." "What if I told you that my presence here is designed to support your mission, not interfere with it?" Elena asked. "The targets I've eliminated were all legitimate threats to your forces. The intelligence I've gathered has been shared with appropriate commands through proper channels." "What intelligence?" Elena reached slowly into her chest pocket and pulled out a small notebook. "Over the past 2 weeks, I've identified and mapped 17 enemy positions, tracked movement patterns of 3 different insurgent groups, and confirmed the locations of 4 weapons caches. That information has been passed to higher headquarters through my reporting chain." Morrison realized that some of the recent intelligence victories his command had been credited with might actually have originated with Elena Cruz's observations. It would explain how their targeting had become so precise lately. "Why operate alone?" Morrison asked. "You could be working with one of my teams, sharing resources and coordination." "Because sometimes the mission requires a different approach," Elena replied. "I can move faster alone, set up in positions that would be difficult for larger teams, and engage targets without the coordination requirements that formal operations demand." Morrison studied her carefully. Elena Cruz was clearly intelligent and well-trained, but there was something else in her manner that suggested she was operating under constraints he didn't understand. "Those shots you've made are beyond what most people consider possible," Morrison said. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" For the first time, Elena's composed expression showed a hint of emotion. "Army sniper school, followed by additional training at some facilities that don't officially exist." I spent 3 years with a special operations unit that specialized in precision operations in challenging environments. Which unit? Elena shook her head. That's classified beyond your clearance level, Commander. But I can tell you that the training was comprehensive and the standards were very high. Morrison was beginning to understand. Elena Cruz was likely part of one of the military's most classified programs, the kind that operated under such deep cover that even other special operations commands didn't know about them. Are you operating under task force authority? Morrison asked, using the code phrase that identified the military's most sensitive operations. Elena's expression didn't change, but Morrison caught a slight nod. I can neither confirm nor deny that, Commander. But I can tell you that my operations here are authorized at the highest levels and designed to complement conventional special operations activities. That explained a lot. Task force operations were so classified that they often appeared to be independent or contractor activities even to other military commands. If Elena Cruz was part of such a program, it would explain her exceptional training, her access to intelligence, and her ability to operate without normal coordination requirements. What happens now? Morrison asked. That depends on you, Commander. I can continue operating independently, staying out of your way and minimizing any potential conflicts. Or we can establish a limited coordination protocol that allows us to deconflict operations without compromising operational security on either side. Morrison considered his options. Having Elena Cruz operating in his area without coordination was problematic, but if she was indeed part of a task force operation, he had little choice but to work with the situation, and her combat effectiveness was undeniable. What would limited coordination look like? I monitor your tactical frequencies and avoid operating in areas where your teams are conducting planned operations. In exchange, you provide me with general information about friendly unit locations so I can avoid potential friendly fire incidents. We both continue focusing on our primary missions. It wasn't ideal, but it was workable. And if I need to contact you for operational reasons? Elena reached into another pocket and pulled out a small device that looked like a standard tactical radio, but Morrison could see it had been modified. This is programmed with a secure frequency. Use call sign Eagle Eye if you need to reach me. I monitor it continuously when I'm in the field. Morrison accepted the radio and clipped it to his vest. What about higher headquarters? Are they going to coordinate with my command about your activities? Commander, the people I work for prefer to maintain compartmentalization for operational security reasons. But I can assure you that my presence here has been approved by authorities senior to both of us. A distant helicopter rotor sound interrupted their conversation. Elena immediately became alert, scanning the surrounding terrain for potential threats or escape routes. That's my ride back to base, Morrison explained. You want a lift? Elena smiled and shook her head. I prefer to make my own transportation arrangements, but thank you for the offer. As the helicopter approached their position, Elena began moving back toward the concealment she had emerged from. Commander, it's been a pleasure meeting you. I hope we can work together effectively. Morrison watched her disappear into the rocky terrain with an ease that was almost supernatural. By the time his helicopter landed, Elena Cruz was completely gone, leaving no trace of her presence except for the radio she had given him. During the flight back to base, Morrison reflected on their conversation. Elena Cruz was clearly one of the most professional soldiers he had ever encountered, with skills that bordered on the legendary. But there were still too many unanswered questions about her background and mission. Back at the forward operating base, Morrison immediately called for a secure conference with his intelligence officer. Chen, I want you to dig deeper into Elena Cruz's background. Use whatever contacts you have in the classified programs. I need to understand what we're dealing with here. Sir, did you make contact with her? Morrison nodded. She's definitely one of ours, working for someone with serious authority. but I still don't have the complete picture. As evening approached, Morrison found himself monitoring the radio frequency Elena had given him. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he had a feeling that their cooperation was going to be tested sooner rather than later. His instinct proved correct when, just after sunset, Elena's voice came across the secure channel. Eagle Eye to Control. I have eyes on a convoy of enemy vehicles moving toward your southern perimeter. Estimated strength, 12 vehicles, mixed technical and transport. They appear to be positioning for an attack on your facility. Morrison grabbed the handset. Eagle Eye, this is Control. Can you provide exact coordinates and disposition? Control. Convoy is moving along Route Tampa, approximately 8 kilometers south of your position. Lead vehicles are armed technicals, followed by troop transports. I count approximately 40 personnel. They've stopped and appear to be conducting reconnaissance of your perimeter defenses. Morrison immediately alerted his security teams and began coordinating a response. But Elena's next transmission made him reconsider his options. Control. I have a clear shot at the lead vehicle from my current position. Range 400 meters. If you want to disrupt their attack before it starts, I can eliminate their command element. Morrison hesitated. Allowing Elena to engage would mean accepting her as part of his tactical operations, something that went beyond their informal coordination agreement. But the intelligence she was providing was time-sensitive and potentially critical. Eagle Eye, stand by. Do not engage without authorization. Morrison quickly consulted with his operations officer and made a decision that would change everything about how he viewed Elena Cruz's role in his command's mission. Morrison looked at his operations officer, Major Parks, who was rapidly calculating response times and tactical options. The enemy convoy represented a significant threat to their forward operating base, and conventional response would take time they might not have. Sir, our quick reaction force needs at least 15 minutes to mount up and move to intercept, Parks reported. Air support is 20 minutes out minimum. If they're planning to attack our perimeter, we need to disrupt them now or prepare for a defensive engagement here at the base. Morrison made his decision. Eagle Eye, you are authorized to engage the lead vehicle. Disable their command and control capabilities. Elena's response was immediate and professional. Copy, Control, engaging lead vehicle now. Morrison and his staff gathered around the tactical display, tracking the enemy convoy's position while listening to Elena's radio transmissions. The tension in the operations center was palpable as they waited to see if one person with a rifle could change the tactical situation. Control, this is Eagle Eye. Target acquired. Wind conditions steady, range 2,437 meters. Taking the shot. The radio went silent for several seconds. Morrison found himself holding his breath, aware that he had just authorized an independent contractor to conduct offensive operations in his area of responsibility based entirely on his assessment of her capabilities. Control, this is Eagle Eye. Direct hit on lead vehicle. Command element eliminated. Enemy convoy has stopped and appears to be in disarray. Morrison immediately got on the radio to his quick reaction force. QRF Alpha, this is Control. Enemy convoy has been engaged and disrupted. Move to Grid 42S MD 34218765 and exploit the situation. Eagle Eye will provide overwatch and target identification. As his forces moved to intercept the confused enemy convoy, Morrison listened to Elena providing real-time intelligence and tactical guidance. QRF Alpha, this is Eagle Eye. Enemy personnel are dismounting from vehicles and attempting to set up defensive positions. I count 37 personnel, mixed small arms, and 2 RPG teams. Recommend approaching from the east where terrain provides better cover. Eagle Eye, this is QRF Alpha. Can you provide precision fires on the RPG teams? Morrison held his breath again. Elena was being asked to provide direct fire support for a moving tactical engagement, something that required split-second timing and exceptional skill to avoid friendly fire incidents. QRF Alpha. I have visual on both RPG teams. Engaging Eastern Team first. Through his radio, Morrison could hear the sound of Elena's rifle firing, followed seconds later by QRF Alpha's confirmation. Eagle Eye. Excellent shot. Eastern RPG team is down. Can you engage the Western team? QRF Alpha, negative on Western team. Your advance has masked my sight line. Recommend flanking movement to the south. I can re-engage once you clear my line of fire. The tactical coordination continued for 20 minutes as Elena provided precision fire support while QRF Alpha maneuvered to complete the destruction of the enemy convoy. Her ability to track friendly forces, identify targets, and execute shots in a dynamic combat environment impressed everyone in the operations center. Control, this is QRF Alpha. Enemy convoy has been completely destroyed. 37 enemy KIA, 12 vehicles destroyed, significant weapons and ammunition captured. Request EOD team for captured explosives. Morrison felt a surge of satisfaction. What could have been a major attack on his base had been turned into a decisive tactical victory, largely due to Elena's intervention and ongoing support. Eagle Eye, this is Control. Outstanding work. Return to base for debrief when you're ready. Elena's response surprised him. Control, this is Eagle Eye. I'll provide overwatch for QRF Alpha's withdrawal, then return to my operational area. I don't operate from conventional bases for security reasons. Morrison understood. If Elena was indeed part of a task force operation, she would maintain separation from conventional units to preserve operational security. But he needed more formal coordination if they were going to continue working together. Eagle Eye, we need to establish better coordination protocols. Can you meet me at the same location as yesterday at 0800 tomorrow? Roger. Control. I'll be there. That evening, Morrison prepared for what he expected to be a crucial conversation. Elena Cruz had proven herself to be an exceptional asset, but he needed to understand more about her capabilities and limitations if they were going to work together effectively. The next morning, Morrison arrived at the meeting location to find Elena already waiting. She was examining her rifle, a Barrett M82A1 that showed signs of heavy use but meticulous maintenance. That's an impressive weapon, Morrison observed as he approached. Elena looked up and smiled. It's been reliable. This particular rifle has been with me through 4 deployments and countless training exercises. I know its characteristics at every range and in every weather condition. Speaking of characteristics, yesterday's performance was remarkable. How do you make those shots so consistently? Elena set down her rifle and turned to face Morrison directly. Commander, I spent 2 years at a facility that most people don't know exists, learning to shoot under conditions that push the boundaries of what's physically possible. The training was designed to produce snipers who could operate independently in environments where conventional forces couldn't go. What kind of training? We started with the basics, wind reading, ballistic calculations, equipment maintenance, but then we moved to advanced techniques, shooting at ranges beyond 3,000 meters, engaging moving targets, operating in extreme weather conditions. We learned to calculate wind drift at multiple levels of the atmosphere to compensate for the Coriolis effect, to account for air density changes due to altitude and temperature. Morrison was impressed. The kind of training Elena was describing went far beyond what even elite military sniper schools provided. How many people completed that program? Out of 47 who started, only 8 finished. The physical and mental requirements were extreme. We had to demonstrate not just shooting ability, but tactical judgment, independent decision-making, and the ability to operate alone for extended periods. And now you're using those skills here. Elena nodded. The threats in this region require precision engagement at ranges that challenge conventional capabilities. My training and equipment allow me to eliminate high-value targets without putting conventional forces at risk. Morrison understood now why Elena operated independently. She wasn't just a sniper. She was a strategic asset designed to operate in situations where conventional forces couldn't be effective. What about your mission here? How long are you planning to stay in this area? That depends on the tactical situation, Commander. My orders are to eliminate high-value targets and provide support to conventional forces as needed. As long as there are threats that require my particular capabilities, I'll remain operational. Morrison made a decision that would formalize their cooperation. Elena, I want to offer you something. Instead of operating completely independently, would you be willing to accept a formal liaison role with my command? You'd maintain your operational independence, but we'd have better coordination and mutual support. Elena considered this carefully. What would that look like in practical terms? You'd have secure communications with my operations center, real-time intelligence sharing, and logistical support if you need it. In exchange, I'd have a better understanding of your operational plans so we can deconflict activities and maximize effectiveness. Commander, I appreciate the offer, but I need to check with my chain of command before I can agree to anything formal. Morrison nodded. I understand. But I want you to know that from my perspective, you've already proven yourself to be a valuable member of this team. Over the next week, Elena's effectiveness became even more apparent. She eliminated 3 high-value targets that had been on the target list for months, provided early warning of 2 enemy attacks, and rescued a downed pilot who had been shot down behind enemy lines. The pilot rescue particularly impressed Morrison. Elena had moved 12 kilometers through hostile territory, eliminated 6 enemy fighters, and carried the wounded pilot to a helicopter landing zone, all within 4 hours of the aircraft going down. "Sir," reported the rescued pilot during his debrief, "that woman saved my life. She appeared out of nowhere, eliminated the enemy patrol that was closing in on me, and then carried me 6 kilometers to the pickup point. I've never seen anyone move through terrain like that." Morrison was reviewing the pilot rescue report when his radio operator called him over. "Sir, we have Eagle Eye on the secure channel." Morrison took the handset, wondering what Elena had to report now. "Eagle Eye, this is Control." "Control, this is Eagle Eye. I've received authorization to accept your liaison proposal. My command has agreed that formal coordination would enhance operational effectiveness without compromising security." Morrison felt a surge of satisfaction. "Eagle Eye, that's outstanding news. What do you need from us to make this work?" "I'll need access to your tactical intelligence updates and advance notice of any operations that might affect my activities. In exchange, I can provide detailed intelligence on enemy activities in areas where your forces don't typically operate." "Done. Can you come to base for a formal briefing with my staff?" There was a pause before Elena responded. "Control, I can meet with your key personnel, but I prefer to do it at a neutral location. Security protocols require that I maintain separation from conventional facilities." Morrison understood and arranged to meet Elena at an abandoned compound about 10 kilometers from his base. When he arrived with his intelligence officer and operations officer, he found Elena had set up a comprehensive briefing area with maps, photos, and detailed notes about enemy activities. "Gentlemen, over the past 3 weeks, I've been mapping enemy networks throughout this region," Elena began. "What I've discovered is that we're dealing with a more sophisticated organization than previous intelligence indicated." She pointed to a detailed map covered with symbols and connecting lines. "They have 3 separate command structures operating independently but with coordinated goals. The first is focused on attacking supply lines, the second on gathering intelligence about our operations, and the third on preparing for a major offensive operation." Morrison studied the map, realizing that Elena's intelligence was far more detailed than anything his command had developed. "How did you gather this information?" "By observing their activities over time and mapping their communication patterns. I've been close enough to several of their meetings to gather human intelligence, and I've tracked their movement patterns to identify their base locations. Elena's intelligence briefing continued for 2 hours, revealing enemy capabilities and intentions that completely changed Morrison's understanding of the threat his forces were facing. Based on this intelligence, I believe they're planning a coordinated attack on 3 different targets within the next week, Elena concluded. They want to capture American personnel for propaganda purposes and seize military equipment to enhance their own capabilities. Morrison looked at his officers, both of whom appeared stunned by the scope and detail of Elena's intelligence. What do you recommend? I recommend preemptive strikes on their command centers and weapons caches, combined with enhanced security at likely targets, Elena replied. I can provide precision fires on high-value targets while your forces conduct coordinated raids on their base areas. Morrison made another decision that would cement Elena's role in his command structure. Elena, I'm promoting you to Senior Intelligence Advisor for this operation. You'll coordinate directly with my staff to plan and execute a comprehensive operation against these targets. Elena smiled, and for the first time since Morrison had met her, she looked genuinely pleased. Commander, I accept that position. But I have one condition. What's that? When this operation is complete, I want to train some of your snipers in advanced long-range techniques. The threats we're facing here require capabilities beyond standard training, and your people deserve every advantage we can give them. Morrison extended his hand, which Elena shook firmly. Elena Cruz, welcome to the team. Officially this time, the operation they planned together over the next 3 days became one of the most successful special operations missions of the deployment. Elena's precision fires eliminated 7 high-value targets, while Morrison's forces conducted simultaneous raids that netted significant intelligence and weapons caches. But more importantly, the collaboration established a new model for how highly specialized assets could work with conventional forces while maintaining operational security and effectiveness. 6 months later, Elena's advanced sniper training program had produced some of the most effective long-range shooters in the military. Her techniques, once classified beyond most people's imagination, became standard training for elite snipers operating in challenging environments. Morrison often reflected on how a single impossible shot had led to a partnership that changed everything about how special operations forces approached precision engagement. Elena Cruz had proven that sometimes the most valuable team member was the one you didn't even know was there, watching your back from an impossible distance, making the shots that nobody thought could be made. The Barrett .50 caliber rifle that had first caught Morrison's attention became legendary among special operations forces, not just for its technical capabilities, but for the woman who wielded it with such extraordinary skill. Elena's 3,008 47-meter shot remained the longest confirmed kill in military history, but those who worked with her knew that the distance of her shots was far less important than the precision of her judgment and the reliability of her support. Commander Morrison learned that sometimes the best way to integrate an exceptional asset wasn't to change how they operated, but to build your operations around their unique capabilities. Elena Cruz never became a conventional team member, but she became something far more valuable, a force multiplier whose presence made every other operator more effective and every mission more likely to succeed. The woman with the Barrett .50 had proven that in the world of special operations, the impossible was just another word for Tuesday.